My name is Ava. I was 13 years old, the night my mother kicked me out. She didn't give me a suitcase. She gave me a black trash bag. It was late, the kind of late where the neighborhood was quiet and the streetlights made everything look colder than it really was. We had been arguing for almost an hour. I don't even remember what started it. Something small. Something stupid. It always was. Her boyfriend was in the living room, pretending not to listen. "You're impossible," she snapped, yanking open my closet door. "I can't do this anymore." Before I understood what she meant, she started pulling my clothes off their hangers and shoving them into a trash bag. T-shirts, jeans, pajamas. Everything crumpled together like it didn't matter. "Mom, stop," I said, my voice shaking. "What are you doing?" "You want to act grown?" she shot back. "Then be grown." She tied the bag in a tight knot and shoved it into my hands. "You can go stay with one of your little friends," she said. "I'm done." At 13, you don't understand how serious certain words are. You think adults cool off? You think doors reopen in the morning? I thought she was trying to scare me. "I'll be back tomorrow," I said, trying to sound brave. She didn't answer. She walked to the front door, opened it, and waited. That's when I understood. She wasn't bluffing. The air outside felt damp and heavy. I stepped onto the porch, clutching the trash bag to my chest. For a second, I stood there, waiting for her to say my name, waiting for her to call me back. Instead, she closed the door. The sound of the lock clicking into place was louder than any argument we'd had. I stood there for a long time. The porch light flicked off. That hurt more than the lock. I walked down the driveway slowly, afraid that if I moved too fast, it would become real. But it was already real. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have money. I had memorized my best friend's number because we used to pass notes in class with it written at the top. I walked 3 blocks to a gas station and asked to use their phone. When my friend's mom answered, I tried to keep my voice steady. "Can I stay over?" I asked. "Just for tonight." She must have heard something in my tone, because she didn't ask questions. She just said yes. I told myself it was temporary, that my mom would call in the morning, that she would calm down, that she would realize I was still a child. She didn't call. The next day passed, then another. My friend's mom gently asked, "Have you spoken to your mother?" I shook my head. Shame is a strange thing at 13. You feel like you must have done something to deserve it, like if you had been quieter, better, easier. The door wouldn't have closed. A week later, my friend's parents sat me down at the kitchen table. "You can't stay here forever," they said carefully. I nodded. I already knew. Eventually, a relative I barely knew took me in. After that, social services got involved. Papers were signed. Words like temporary placement and guardian review floated around rooms I wasn't supposed to understand. Through all of it, my mother stayed silent. No calls, no visits, no explanation. The trash bag sat at the end of whatever bed I was sleeping in, a reminder that I hadn't left with dignity. I had been discarded. At 13, I learned something that most people don't learn until much later. When someone decides you are inconvenient, love can disappear very quickly. I stopped waiting for the phone to ring. I stopped imagining apologies. And somewhere in that quiet, I made a promise to myself. One day, I would never need anyone to unlock a door for me again. The first few weeks after I was kicked out felt unreal, like I was living someone else's life. I stayed with my friend's family for 9 days. Long enough to wear out my welcome without anyone saying it directly. They were kind, but kindness has limits when it isn't planned. I could feel it in the way their voices lowered when they thought I couldn't hear. I saw it in the way my friend avoided eye contact when her parents asked about the situation. I kept saying it was temporary. "She'll call soon," I told them. She didn't. After that, I moved in with my mother's cousin, a woman I had met only twice before. She lived in a small apartment and had 3 kids of her own. I slept on the couch. I folded my trash bag of clothes neatly and pushed it under the coffee table during the day, so it wouldn't be in the way. No one asked why my mother hadn't come to get me. Maybe they already knew. Within a month, social services stepped in. I remember sitting in a gray office while a caseworker asked questions in a soft voice. "Do you feel safe returning home?" I didn't know how to answer that. Was I safe? Yes. Was I wanted? No. That felt harder to explain. Temporary placement turned into longer placement. Papers were filed. Meetings were scheduled. I learned new words like custody review and parental relinquishment. My mother signed documents without fighting for me. That was the part that hurt most. Not the argument. Not the trash bag. The silence afterward. At 13, I started watching adults differently. I paid attention to how they managed money, how they spoke in meetings, how they made decisions. I realized something simple and terrifying. No one was coming to fix this for me. So I began fixing it for myself in small ways. I studied harder, not because I loved school, but because it was the only stable system in my life. If I got good grades, teachers treated me differently. If I stayed busy, I didn't have to think about the house I wasn't allowed back into. By 14, I was babysitting on weekends. By 15, I had a part-time job at a grocery store. I saved everything I could. Even $5 felt important. Other kids my age worried about dances and sports and who liked who. I worried about where I would live when I turned 18. The trash bag eventually tore at the bottom from being dragged around too many times. I replaced it with a secondhand duffel bag I bought from a thrift store. It felt like an upgrade, like progress. My mother never visited. There were no birthday cards, no holiday messages, no quiet attempts to reconnect. At first, I checked my phone every day hoping to see her name. Then I stopped expecting it. That was the real turning point. When you stop expecting someone to rescue you, something changes inside. It isn't anger exactly. It's clarity. I realized that if I wanted stability, I would have to build it myself. If I wanted safety, I would have to create it. If I wanted a future that didn't feel fragile, I would have to earn it step by step. By 16, I had a plan. Graduate early if possible. Work more hours. Apply for scholarships. Leave foster placement with money in my account and somewhere to go. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't imagining success to prove her wrong. I was thinking about survival. Because at 13, when the porch light went off behind me, I understood something most children never have to face. Home is not guaranteed, and if I ever had one again, it would be because I owned it. By the time I turned 18, I didn't feel like a teenager. I felt like someone who had already lived through a lifetime of decisions. I graduated high school a semester early, not because I was a genius, but because I treated school like a job. I showed up. I stayed late. I asked for extra credit. I learned quickly that teachers are more willing to help when they see you helping yourself. The day I turned 18, I had a small savings account with just under $4,000 in it. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every dollar had come from late shifts, early mornings, and weekends when other kids were out doing things I didn't have the time or energy for. I rented a tiny studio apartment with peeling paint and a radiator that made strange noises at night. The kitchen was barely big enough to stand in. The bathroom door didn't close properly, but when I locked that door from the inside for the first time, I felt something settle inside me. No one could tell me to leave. No one could flip off a porch light. I worked full-time during the day and took community college classes at night. It was exhausting, but exhaustion felt safer than dependence. While other people my age talked about finding themselves, I was focused on building something solid. I chose business courses because I wanted to understand money. I wanted to know how leases worked. I wanted to understand interest rates, contracts, and ownership. Ownership. That word started to mean everything to me. If you own something, No one can hand you a trash bag and make you disappear. After 2 years, I transferred to a state university with scholarships and grants. I still worked, still saved. I didn't waste money. I didn't take risks I couldn't afford. Sometimes people called me overly serious, too guarded, too independent. They didn't know what it feels like to be 13 and unwanted. I didn't date much. I didn't rely on anyone. I kept my circle small and my plans clear. By 25, I had a steady job in property management. It wasn't glamorous, but it taught me something important. Buildings are predictable. Numbers make sense. Contracts are enforceable. People, on the other hand, are unpredictable. I saved aggressively. I invested carefully. I learned how to spot undervalued properties. I watched owners sell buildings they no longer wanted to manage. I remembered what it felt like to be disposable. So I decided I would never be the disposable one again. At 29, an opportunity came up. A small apartment building, older but structurally sound, was going up for sale. I had managed it for 2 years. I knew its numbers better than anyone. The owner was retiring. I ran the calculations 10 times. It was a risk, a serious one, but it was also a chance. I put everything I had into the down payment, every saved dollar, every safe decision, every year of saying no to comfort. When the papers were signed, I held the keys in my hand and felt something close to disbelief. 18 years earlier, I stood outside with a trash bag because someone decided I was too much to handle. Now, I owned a building. Not rented, owned. The first night I walked through the empty hallway after closing, the sound of my footsteps echoed softly against the walls. I ran my hand along the railing and thought about the porch light going dark when I was 13. No one could turn off the lights on me now. I didn't build this to prove her wrong. I built it because I promised myself I would never be at someone else's mercy again. I didn't know then that news travels fast, and that 18 years after she locked me out, she would stand at my door again, this time because she had learned I own the keys. I found out she knew before she showed up. One of the tenants mentioned it casually. "You have the same last name as a woman who called earlier," he said, while dropping off rent. "She was asking if you were the owner." My stomach tightened. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 18 years. Not a birthday card, not a holiday message, nothing. As far as I knew, we existed in completely separate worlds. "What did you tell her?" I asked carefully. "That you were in a meeting?" He shrugged. "She sounded surprised, like she didn't expect you to be the boss." "The boss?" I nodded and said nothing more. For the rest of the afternoon, I told myself it meant nothing. Maybe it was a coincidence, maybe someone else with my name. But deep down, I knew. She wouldn't have called unless she had heard something. And then, 3 days later, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was early evening. The building was quiet. I had just finished reviewing maintenance requests and was heating leftovers in my apartment upstairs. The doorbell rang again. Slowly, I walked to the door and opened it. For a second, I didn't recognize her. 18 years changes a person. Her hair was thinner, her posture smaller, the sharpness in her face softened by time. But it was her. "Hi," she said, like we had spoken last week. My hand tightened on the doorframe. "Hi," I replied. There was no hug, no attempt to close the distance. She looked past me into the hallway of the building. "So it's true," she said. "You own this place." Not, "How have you been?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just confirmation. "Yes," I said calmly. She nodded slowly, as if trying to process it. "I didn't know you were doing so well," she added. "Doing well?" That phrase felt strange coming from her. I didn't answer right away. "What do you want?" I asked finally. She shifted her weight, suddenly less confident. "I heard the building changed hands," she said. "Someone mentioned your name. I didn't believe it at first." "And now you do?" "Yes." There was a long pause. "I need somewhere to stay," she said quietly. There it was. No apology, No acknowledgement of the night she handed me a trash bag. Just need... Why? I asked. She hesitated. I lost the house, she admitted. Things haven't been... stable. The word stable echoed in my mind. I had been 13 when stability disappeared from my life. Are you asking to rent a unit? I asked evenly. She looked uncomfortable. I was hoping maybe we could work something out. Work something out. The same woman who told me to act grown was now standing at my door asking for understanding. Do you remember the last time I stood on a porch with you? I asked quietly. Her eyes flickered. I was upset, she said quickly. It was a long time ago. You gave me a trash bag, I said. The hallway between us felt colder. You turned out fine, she replied, almost defensively. Look at you. That sentence landed harder than anything else. I didn't turn out fine because she kicked me out. I turned out fine despite it. I looked at her carefully. 18 years ago, she held the power to close a door on me. Now, I was the one holding the keys. And for the first time in my life, she was the one waiting to see what I would decide. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hallway light hummed softly above us. Somewhere downstairs, a door closed. Life continued in the building I now owned. I didn't come here to fight, she said finally. I didn't expect you to, I replied. She looked tired, not dramatic, not desperate, just worn down. I made mistakes, she continued. I was young. I didn't know how to handle things. You were 32, I said quietly, the same age I am now. That realization had hit me years ago. At 13, 32 felt ancient. Now I understood exactly how old she had been the night she shut the door on me. She wasn't a confused teenager. She was an adult. I had pressure, she insisted. Bills. A relationship falling apart. You were difficult. Difficult. The word almost made me laugh. I was 13, I said. 13-year-olds are difficult. That's not a reason to throw them out. She looked down at her hands. I thought you'd come back, she admitted. I thought you'd apologize. For what? For arguing, for disrespect. The air between us felt heavy. You expected me to apologize for being a child? I asked. She didn't answer. I slept on couches. I continued calmly. I moved between houses. I sat in social services offices explaining why my own mother didn't want me. I didn't say I didn't want you. You didn't have to say it. Silence. She shifted again. Uncomfortable. I heard you bought this building, she said, changing direction. I thought maybe you'd understand what it's like to lose everything. I held her gaze. I do understand, I said. I lost everything at 13. That wasn't an exaggeration. When you lose your home at that age, you lose more than walls. You lose certainty. You lose softness. You lose the belief that someone will catch you if you fall. I don't have anywhere else, she said quietly. That sentence was familiar. I had thought the same thing 18 years ago. I'm not asking for charity, she added quickly. Just a chance. A chance. She never gave me one. I stepped aside slightly, but not to let her in, just enough to create space to breathe. There are empty units, I said. If you want to apply, you can fill out the paperwork like everyone else. Her head lifted sharply. Paperwork? Yes. You'd charge me rent. I charge everyone rent. Her face hardened for a second. I'm your mother. And I was your daughter. The words were calm, not cruel, but they were final. I can't let you stay here for free, I continued. Not because I hate you, but because this building isn't built on guilt. It's built on contracts. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't. The girl with the trash bag would have begged for approval. The woman holding the keys didn't need it. You're cold, she said softly. No, I replied. I'm careful. Another silence stretched between us. I didn't think you'd hold on to that night for so long, she murmured. I didn't hold on to it, I said. I built past it. There's a difference. Holding on to something keeps you stuck. Building past it means you carry the lesson, not the pain. If you want to rent a unit, I repeated, I'll treat you like any other tenant. Fair, legal, clear. And if I can't afford it, then you'll have to find another option. It wasn't revenge. It was reality. 18 years ago, she decided I was old enough to survive on my own. Now she was about to learn what that really meant. She didn't leave right away. She stood there in the hallway, looking at me as if she was trying to measure how much of the 13-year-old girl was still left inside me. I don't know if I can pass a credit check, she said quietly. That's part of the process, I replied. You'd really deny me if I don't qualify? I held her gaze. I don't bend the rules for anyone. She let out a slow breath, the kind that carries years inside it. When you were a child, I thought being strict would make you stronger, she said. It did, I answered, but not in the way you think. There was no anger in my voice now, just clarity. Strength built from abandonment feels different than strength built from support. It is sharper, more guarded, less forgiving. She looked around the hallway again, as if realizing she wasn't just standing in front of her daughter's apartment. She was standing inside a structure her daughter had earned. You really did all this alone? She asked. Yes, she nodded slowly. I didn't think you would, she admitted. That was the most honest thing she had said since arriving. You didn't think I would survive? I corrected gently. I thought you'd come back, she said again. I had nowhere to come back to. Silence. Then she straightened slightly. Fine, she said. Give me the application. I didn't move immediately. For 18 years, I had imagined different versions of this moment. Some were dramatic. Some were angry. Some ended with me slamming the door the way she once had. But this felt different. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just real. I walked downstairs to the small office near the lobby and pulled a rental application from the file cabinet. Standard form. Income verification. Rental history. Emergency contact. When I handed it to her, our fingers almost touched. Almost. If you qualify, I said, you can move into one of the one-bedroom units on the second floor. And if I don't, she asked, then I can't approve it. She studied my face, looking for hesitation. There wasn't any. You've changed, she said again. Yes, I replied. I had to. She gave a small nod. I suppose I'll see if I qualify. That was it. No tears, no dramatic apology, no sudden reconciliation, just paperwork. As she turned to leave, she paused. I was wrong that night, she said without facing me. The words hung there. They weren't detailed. They weren't emotional, but they were something. I know, I answered. She walked out of the building slowly. I locked the front door behind her, not out of hostility, but out of habit. That was the difference between us. She had locked doors out of anger. I locked them for security. Upstairs in my apartment, I sat down at my desk and looked at the master keys laid neatly in a drawer. 18 years ago, I stood outside with a trash bag and no control over where I would sleep. Now, I controlled access to every door in this building, not because someone handed me power, but because I built it. And this time, no one could take it away. She turned in the application 2 days later, neatly filled out, signed, attached with pay stubs that looked thinner than I expected. I reviewed it the same way I review every tenant file: income verification, debt ratio, rental history, no shortcuts. Her credit wasn't strong, but it wasn't disastrous either. She had been moving frequently, late payments here and there. Nothing catastrophic. Just instability. Instability. I understood that word better than most. I approved her for a one-bedroom on the second floor. Standard lease. Standard deposit. Standard terms. When I called to let her know, she sounded surprised. You're approving me? She asked. You meet the minimum requirements, I said. There was a pause. Thank you, she said quietly. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. The day she came to sign the lease, we sat across from each other at the small desk in the lobby office. I slid the contract toward her. 12 months, I explained. Rent due on the 1st. Late fees apply after the 5th. Maintenance requests go through the portal. She gave a small, almost amused smile. You really are the landlord. Yes, she signed without arguing. When it was done, I reached into the drawer and pulled out a set of keys. Not master keys, just her unit. I held them for a second longer than necessary. 18 years ago, she had held the only key to the house I called home. She chose to lock it. Now I held the keys, and I was choosing differently. I placed them on the desk in front of her. This is your copy, I said. She looked at them, then at me. I don't expect special treatment, she said softly. You won't get it, I replied. There was no edge in my voice, just truth. As she stood to leave the office, she hesitated. I can't change what I did, she said, but I can try to do better. I studied her face carefully. For years, I imagined needing an apology to move forward. Now I realized I didn't, because I had already built forward. I don't need you to fix the past, I said calmly. I just need you to respect the present. She nodded, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman who handed me a trash bag. I saw someone who finally understood she no longer controlled the doors. That night, after she moved into her unit, I walked through the building one last time before locking up. The hallway lights were steady, the floors clean, the doors secure. When I reached the front entrance, I turned off the lobby lights and stepped outside. The air felt cool. 18 years ago, I stood on a porch holding everything I owned in a garbage bag while the light behind me went dark. Tonight, I locked my own building from the outside and slipped the keys into my pocket. She gave me a trash bag and shut the door. 18 years later, I owned the keys. And this time, the light stayed on because I chose to keep them that way.